Hey guys, today we're going to remake Blackhole by Architects, and it's going to sound like this. As soon as I heard this song, I knew I had to remake it. I could hear that it wasn't just a standard guitar, bass, and drums metal mix, but I really had to listen hard to figure out what is really going on with the production here and how they're achieving this super tight, clean, and aggressive mix. So today we're going to look into all of that, and I'm going to break down step by step all of the tricks I'm hearing in this song that are giving it that incredible modern metal sound. The song was produced by Jordan Fish, and there's definitely some of his signature tricks in there, as well as a couple of really outside the box tricks that I think we're going to start seeing more in modern metal. So let's jump in, and I want to start off with that riff, that freaking huge guitar riff. So let's lay down some drums before anything else, and the kick pattern is going to be like this. 160 beats per minute, and it's going to be bam, 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 bam. And here is where we get to the first little burst on the kick drums. So it didn't take long, but this song is just full of these little 16th note triplet bursts. So like this. And then it's going to be here that we have the rapid fire 16th note triplets. And it's important to note that those are triplets. It's not a gallop. It's not diddler, 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 diddler. You know, this isn't Iron Maiden. It's brr, brr, brr. It's a super quick blast of notes. This song's like a masterclass in syncopated rhythms. There's not a lot of repetition at all, and it just keeps switching up the kick pattern. So I'm using the Get Good Drums metal kit for the kick, but this kick needs some heavy processing before it sounds like the Blackhole kick, and the first thing we're going to do is just tidy it up. It just needs to be super, super tight and kind of overproduced, but in the best way. So let's start with a noise gate just to clean up that tail a little bit. We really don't want any tail here, any boominess. We just need that clicky, sharp sound. As you already know, there's some really quick bursts of kick drums, so we need to focus on clarity here above anything else. But now that we've basically isolated the kick sound we want, let's push it a little harder, make it a little more aggressive with some tape saturation. I've been really liking this Big Owl plugin recently. Let's try this. And we want to be careful here. We don't want to destroy the clarity of the kick. We don't want to lose that harsh slap. We just want to push it to the limit of breakup so it sounds as in your face as possible. I always go for like a soft clipper or a saturation plugin for kicks because a full-on distortion is usually going to affect the clarity, and you don't want to lose that snap of the kick drum. So that's why we're going with the tape saturation there, and you can hear it's really big and aggressive now. But it's just getting a little too slappy in the high mids. You hear that? We want it to be aggressive, but we don't want to give the listener a headache. So let's just tame that a little bit with some EQ. A little bit of a low mid boost as well, just to make it fuller. But you hear how these are just really tidying it up so it's still punchy and aggressive, but it's not over the top. This is pretty much what we want. But I want to now finish off our kick by just adding this sample and layering this over every time the kick drum hits. And the reason I'm doing this, if you listen to the sample on its own, I'm basically compensating for that little bit of high end that we cut out. This song doesn't really have that slap you hear from a real kick drum. It does have real kick drum in it, but to me it sounds like they've cut that slap out of the real kick sound and layered something like this. So this is just a pop drum sample, nice and snappy and digital, and all I've done with this is just cut all the low end out so we just get this snappy, super sharp sound that doesn't sound that special on its own, but in the mix, this is going to be what our metal kick drum needs to kind of just give it a bit of a sharp edge and really make sure it cuts through. This is almost like throwing it back to old Architects, like 2010s typewriter kicks. Like, if the kick drum doesn't sound like a typewriter, is it really metalcore? And throughout this video, you're going to see some more examples of tricks like these where we take a human element like a kick drum, for example, and layer a digital sample with it to kind of find this space between human and digital, because that's basically where this song is. It's like this perfect blend of pure animalistic rage and digital tight perfection. Now we're going to focus on the snare, which is going to be a bit simpler. So we're using the Get Good Drums metal kit again. So let's just program it in. It's going to be a hit where you would expect. And it's going to be a simple formula for the snare. First, just slam it with some compression. We'll take that further with some distortion from Decapitator. And let's finish it with a bit of U-Jam reverb. This thing sounds great on a snare. There we go. And just before we move on, let's go over the cymbals. This is going to be just as aggressive as the snare. So I'm actually using the Mixwave Gojira kit because these cymbals just sounded a little closer to the song. And these cymbals, we're just slamming them with Decapitator on punish mode. Really harsh, aggressive distortion. And it's just going to be straight crashes. The only other thing for the cymbals is that little pause on the first beat. You might think that what you're hearing in the song is a cymbal choke, so he hits the cymbal and grabs it. But this is another one of these little tricks where they're taking it a little bit further, making it a little bit tighter with some digital stuff. So what they're actually doing is just automating the cymbal, straight up muting it. I can hear it in the song. And it's going to be the same thing for these rapid fire bursts. So that's not a cymbal choke. They'll play it live with a choke, but guarantee you, on the actual recording, they just did this. It's just like a really hard mute to make it hit as hard as possible. Silence can be the heaviest thing. If you want a nice organic sounding drum performance, don't do this. If you just want sheer brutality, do it. Before we move on to the bass, we're going to add one more step to make the drums even bigger. So this is a dubstep kit by U-Jam, and as random as this may seem, stay with me because it's going to make sense. I'm just going to directly follow exactly what our metal drums are doing. I'm almost certain I can hear some digital dubsteppy kind of drum samples layered in there with the main drums to get this more kind of digital, super tight sound. You hear how it sounds like a metal drum kit, but just more aggressive, more intense. You know, you can process real drums as much as you want, but sometimes layering a hard digital sample with it is just going to be the best way to make it as heavy as possible. Now, before we lay down that huge guitar riff, let's lay down the bass because it's more important in this song than you may think. And we're going to do something a little different today. I have been waiting for the right video to use this plugin, and because we're going for a super, super tight, almost digital sound, this is the one. So firstly, I want to thank Solemn Tones for sponsoring this video. This is their plugin called Sanguine Bass, and I honestly have started using this thing all the time, especially in demos or when I'm laying down an idea, but even in final mixes too. As you're going to see today, it is super high quality. So let's start by programming in the riff, and this is in drop G sharp, so on bass, this is like as low as you can go. What I love about this is that we can go in here and humanize it. So we can add a little bit of noise from your hands, just like a real human. The reason I love this is because for this song, we can put that to 0 and make it kind of unnatural, but it gets super, super tight, which is what we need. It does make it sound a bit digital, but once we've got the big guitars over it, that's just going to sound like a sick bass tone, and no one would ever know it's programmed. So all I want to do with this is just set it into the mix a little bit, tame the mid-range where it's getting a little noisy. Maybe a little bass boost. Locks right in with the kick drum. That's like the perfect foundation for our guitar riff. If you want a video specifically on getting this tone from a real bass guitar, my Sleep Token video touches on it, and some upcoming videos will be going into that soon, so make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss that. But for this song, that's just saved me a ton of time. This is the exact tone we would have been chasing if we were dialing it in, so genuinely love this thing. And it has a bunch of other things we can change, which I've not gone into, so if you want to take a deeper look, head to the description and check that out. Alright, now we're ready for that huge guitar riff, that brutal guitar tone, and I have some really cool tricks for this as well, so let's get into it. I'm going to start with another Gojira themed plugin, the Archetype Gojira Amp by Neural DSP. So you can see the noise gate is going crazy here. Just like every other element of this song, we want it super, super, super tight. And you can see I've actually got the gain quite low. I'm using this amp because it's great for high gain tones, but we really want to preserve the clarity. It's quite a genty tone, which this amp is great at as long as you don't go too crazy with the distortion. Gent is more about clarity than like crazy distortion. And this amp already sounds great, but for me, the cab is not quite the right sound. It's a little chunky in the mid-range. And we want something very crisp, very genty, very mid-scooped. So I'm going to actually bring in a different cab. SS11X is a great plugin for that because look at all these freaking cabs. So I'm going to use this Mesa one because it's just got that crisp, modern, genty sound. Compare that to... Next, I just want to tidy things up a little with EQ. Let's start with a low pass filter and just bring that down a little bit. Right there, 9K. We just don't need all that fizz on top. And let's maybe just clean up the mid-range a little. Cut a little bit of low end too. We want to let the bass do its job, and maybe we boost a little bit of like low mids, maybe around here. Okay, that should sit well in a mix now. The last thing I want to do with the guitars is the most important thing. We're going to tighten it up with this pedal, which is a replica of the Horizon Device's precision drive. And this attack knob should just be called like the gent knob. It's magic. It just completely tightens the low end up. And as you know by now, we want it as tight as possible. So let's turn that up all the way. So aggressive. I love this thing, and it's free as well. Huge cheat code for this kind of sound. I mean, this pedal in general, put it in front of any high gain amp, it will improve the sound. So that is our guitar tone on the left and right. Let's lay down the riff. And on the right. And one last little guitar trick we're going to do that's another very important part of this mix is I'm just going to go in like this and surgically cut off all the audio where we want silence. Even though we noise gated the guitars really aggressively, we don't want any little hand noises or anything in between. It wants to be robotically tight. So all of this is just going to be silence, and you will hear what a difference this makes. Let's loop these bursts here because that's where you're going to hear it the most. Just insanely tight. They should have just called this song tight. Everything about it is tight. The silence just makes it hit so hard every time it hits back in. So that is our guitar, bass, and drums all locking in together, but we're not quite finished yet. We've left a little bit of space in the guitar and bass tone for some final ingredients that are going to take this from a metal mix and turn it into the Blackhole mix. So over the last few years, Jordan Fish has really developed a signature sound where he layers huge metal guitars with focused bass and crazy synth sounds all working together to create one giant wall of sound. Obviously, listening to the song, it's hard to pick out every specific layer that is adding up to create this huge sound you're hearing in the final master, but I can tell you this song is an absolute masterclass in layering. There's a bunch of different synths in there, and they're all just working perfectly together to create this huge sound. So we're going to start with this stock sounding Cubase called Portamento Bass. And it's basically just like a saturated sine wave. Let's just copy what's on the bass track and stick it on this track. On its own, that obviously doesn't sound all that heavy, but in the mix, this is going to fill out those sub-frequencies that we need to get that modern sound. So having some kind of sine wave synth or really subby 808 in there is the first thing you want to do with synths if you're going for the Jordan Fish sound. You just have to be careful that it doesn't dominate the mix. This is going to be quite quiet overall. And it's just there to lock in with the bass guitar and make it even fuller. Next, we have this one, which if you saw my Bring Me the Horizon video, it's the same preset that I called Huge Bass. So this is just one of my Vital presets, and it's a very Jordan Fish inspired sound. Most of his songs have this kind of like chorused hard synth sound. So it's just a whole blend of waves going from smooth to harsh. Lots of voices, so it's like a big choir of bass synths, and then just slamming it with distortion. The only thing I'm doing different with this than in the Bring Me the Horizon video is just cutting out the low end because we've got the other synths handling that. This one is basically just here to add power to the guitars. All right, and one final synth sound, and this is another one that I broke down in the Bring Me the Horizon video. It makes sense, right? It's Jordan Fish, so we're just going to make power chords like that. Put a high octave as well. This is only a quiet element in the mix, but if you listen carefully to the original, it is very much in there. You can definitely hear it. So again, it's Vital Synth, more of a saw wave sound this time. And you can see we're just filtering it down, so we've got none of that harsh top end. Lots of voices here going on for this one as well, so it's a really big full sound. And that is only a small element, but it's there for a purpose. It's not just a quirky sound they wanted to add. There's so much low end and high end in this track, so this one's basically here to hype things up and add the energy. You know, energy is in the mid-range, so this is almost like a noise track, just there to kind of add some like on top of everything to really make it feel hyper. Alright, and just before we lay down the verse and the chorus, I want to bring in some samples, so we of course need a bass drop, a big explosion, and just an extra cymbal, just to make that drop even more explosive. Getting to the verse, this is where it gets a lot simpler, so it's just going to be straight kick drums. Same story with the snare, just bang, bang. And the same with the cymbals, it's basically like a Slipknot verse, just hitting away. And the guitar's only going to take that Slipknot vibe even further. Alright, I've also programmed in the bass part for the verse because it just follows the guitars again. Now the guitar part is super distorted, so it's hard to make out exactly what the notes are, but it's something like this. And on the right, so I can't say that's 100% accurate, but I can say that I can hear basically atonal notes all over the place. So there's a lot of minor seconds. There's definitely a perfect fourth in there, down to a major third. And I'm also hearing minor thirds, so it's all over the place. I even think I can maybe hear some flat fifth chords. It's just nasty, this verse. Very Slipknot, like I said, very evil, like one of the heaviest Architects verses that I've ever heard. And there's one thing missing, and I keep saying how Slipknot this verse is. Well, it gets even more Slipknot. I don't know if you've noticed, but in the verse, there's that little, whatever that noise is, something hitting on metal, and it just really makes the song feel more industrial and more Slipknot. I just took that sample from the Industrial kit in Cubase, which thankfully has the perfect sound that we needed for that. All right, now for the chorus, I've programmed in the drums, I've programmed in the bass because it's all very simple. Bass follows guitar again, and the drums, to be honest, it's just a Bring Me the Horizon drum beat, and I'm not complaining about that. This chorus is absolutely incredible, but it just makes me think of Bring Me. So anyway, here's the guitars. It's just a 4-chord progression, single notes, could not be simpler, but the tone is just huge. Okay, and in the chorus, we're going to bring in that same super saw synth sound from the Bring Me the Horizon video. And we're just going to add like these ethereal chords, kind of like a string sound or a choir. So it's going to be G sharp, F sharp, C sharp, B. And we'll just make them into power chords. And let's put an octave above every chord as well. Just helps the whole song to lift in the chorus and feel super epic. Okay, only one thing left, and this is probably the hardest thing to hear in the mix, but it's a very stereotypical Architects thing. They put it in every song, and it's the kind of reverb heavy lead guitar part. So again, hard to pick out exactly what the notes are, but it's something like this. For this tone, I'm using SS11X again, great plugin for leads. And then I'm just bringing in a Cubase ping pong delay, just a basic setting. I just use the guitar solo preset. Sounds nice and epic. And that's all it needs. Okay, and that is it, guys. That's all the key sounds in this song broken down and replicated. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like. And if you want to see more content like this, subscribe. And if you want to learn more from me and really dive deep with this stuff, my first online course is now only a few weeks away from dropping. And that course is going to give you everything you need to produce in this kind of style. It's going to be like one of these videos times 100. So definitely make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss out on that. Let me know what else you want to see on the channel. I always value your guys' input. And I'll see you in the next one.